At this time, we're back. Eric DeSobe here, joined by Dylan. Dylan and I used to work together at KIP. Dylan, what's the name of your charter network out on the East Coast again?
Yeah, so I work for Friendship Public Charter School in Washington D.C.
And y'all have how many schools these days?
We serve 4,000. Well, we just got our enrollment, so 4,700 kids, and have 8 brick and mortar buildings, but 16 total campuses, including an online campus, which is really interesting.
Oh, interesting. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, as somebody who's worked in town a long time, you are always thinking about a lot of interesting things, especially when school years start. You and I were chatting a little bit before we started about things that are top of mind for you. Give us a scoop on what you're thinking about the most these days as the school year gets started and kicks off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking a lot about how to be the best place to work and learn, just generally, and what that means. I think at the beginning of the school year, we always want to be really visible at schools. We want to celebrate and be incredibly positive. We want to ensure that we know people's names. We want to be going around to classrooms. We want to ensure there's high engagement with the kids. I think that it's important really early on, especially if you're kind of leading people in HR work, to get a pulse check on kind of how people are feeling, especially our new hires, right? They just had a big, busy summer. We just onboarded a lot of them. But like now that they're in the building with kids, do they feel supported? Do they have the right technology? Do they have the right resources? Do they understand kind of who to go to for what, right? Because as kids are in the building every morning at 7:45, like the work happens. They're coming every day. So checking in with our new hires, making sure we're very present and visible, and keeping it really positive.
You've been doing this long enough to have seen some ebbs and flows and twists and turns and what people who work at places want or what they respond to retention wise. Are you seeing anything different about this kind of crop of folks of this approximate age, 22 to 28 these days? What kind of things are they prioritizing?
Yeah, I think in general, people want more flexibility.
Mm.
And I think that obviously operating like brick and mortar schools when you have to physically be at work, I think that means different things. So, I think instead of having just one teacher work category, which is, hey, you're a 10-month employee and you're going to get the summers and breaks off, thinking about, converting people's salaries to hourly if they only want to work 10 hours a week, right? Thinking about kind of job sharing. Thinking about potential hybrid opportunities, especially like, for example, we have 2 high schools. So, how can we ensure that our, best physics teachers, interacting with more students, put that class online and have both high schools kind of, kids, come into that class. So I think it's about, thinking outside the box in terms of regular employment and, trying to be adaptable to people's needs. I think it's also, I don't think this is necessarily, unique to this group of people in the workforce right now, but it's really critical, I think, as a leader to lead with the why, like any decision, to try to over communicate and share your logic and root that in your mission and your values, to kind of just reiterate it. I think people need to know why decisions are made and be over communicated with. I know that's something that I really value. And I think that other than like the flexibility in terms of jobs, and kind of leading with the why in communications, I would say that it's really important that we have empathetic leaders who cared, about people themselves. So we do a lot in terms of like our leadership development and checking in with our leaders about, how, do you have relationships with individuals outside of just like your regular your regular work check-ins? Like, do you know who has families? Do you know who has like early pickups? Do you know who, might have, relation or like their own kids at other friendship schools, right? But I think that having really empathetic leaders and really ensuring that we're focusing on that as a development piece is really critical to ensuring that people feel seen, heard, and valued.
And are you seeing when folks do leave, are they usually leaving the education space entirely, or is it still a matter of they're looking at other school districts or charter networks nearby and essentially trying to get the same job just at a different place? What kind of things are you seeing when people actually do decide to move around?
Yeah. I wish I could put little GPS trackers on folks. I mean, not actually, but, in terms of tracking where people are going. In terms of like our exit interviews, we get a lot better information when we just actually have phone calls rather than have people fill out surveys.
Yeah.
But I would say that here in Washington D.C., we're in a pretty saturated market in terms of public charters, public schools. We also we're right next to Maryland, we're right next to Virginia, right? So I think that people are hopping between different schools. I think that also just kind of in the time and space that we're at in Washington, D.C., those kind of jobs that would be similar, like education, nonprofit jobs, mission-driven organizations are not necessarily hiring at the pace that they were, during other periods of time.
Yeah. A lot of people who listen are in roles similar to yours, where it's not strictly acquisition; it's a lot of different things, HR roles, retention roles. As you try to get some of your retention initiatives through, what other teams in your org do you find that you collaborate the most on, or who also needs to be sold or need to get buy-in to make some of these things come true?
Yeah, I am super lucky to work with amazing people, and our organization is really flat. I would say, it, which I really appreciate. I work hand in hand with our chief academic officer on a daily basis. When you think about the reporting structure of schools, if everybody's reporting to the principal, and then who is the principal reporting to? It's the chief academic officer. So I think in terms of change management and ensuring that we're prioritizing the right things and communicating really clearly, it's the chief academic officer. I find that working with our communications team regarding brand strength, brand awareness, frequency of communications, either quick hit communications or like larger kind of newsletters. It's definitely the communications team. But I feel really lucky to be working with, a team and an executive leadership team that we've been together for six plus years. We have had very little attrition, so we work really well together.
Yeah. Is your org going into AI much to try to further some of these initiatives that you're doing? If so, what kind of things have kind of stuck so far?
Yeah, I think for our AI work, we've really focused a lot more on less about as team members or employees utilizing the tools in effective ways. I think that's what we need to lean in on, but more about how we're incorporating it in student-based learning and kind of in, and how our students are engaging with it. I think, we've had, a group of people really focus on, especially in our high schools, like how it could better the rigor of certain courses. So so we're not just necessarily teaching to the middle, right? But we're kind of extending lessons and encouraging students to really take their own learning on.
And do you see agentic chatbot type things being something that furthers your cause on the retention, because potentially information could be easily distributed, so everything like in your employee assistance programs could be much more quickly found, or things like that? Or do you ultimately feel like that runs counter to what you're trying to do because it's not as human as what you would want to make sure someone feels?
Yeah, I think the latter, right? I think that we are big enough to make a difference, but small enough to care. That's kind of how I feel sometimes with a mid-sized organization like ours. We have pretty high retention, like up to 85 to 90% each year. So relationships matter. Again, knowing people's names matters. Having authentic, communication matters. Being physically present matters. Again, being visible matters. So I think that there are opportunities for efficiency. But it's important that there's always somebody who is editing those messages for tone, empathy, and most importantly, again, in HR work, is accuracy.
Legal. Yeah.
You can. It's not about how quickly you respond. It's about how accurately you respond.
Yeah. Hey, last thing, if folks want to learn more about your org or work with you for hopefully a long time, what's the best way for them to make that happen?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, you can find me at Dylan Gruver, and always happy to text, chat over the phone. Really love having deep relationships. That's one of the reasons why I'm staying in education, is because the people here are incredible.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll put that info in the episode description. Dylan, thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening. Catch all the past episodes, all the places you get your podcasts. Catch Dylan and I in Stunning 4K on YouTube as well. Until next time, catch you soon.